Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is begging NATO leaders for modern fighter aircraft to turn the tide in their war against Russia. Unfortunately, Canada's combat cupboard is bare. It's time to target how a G8 country could be bereft of so many military resources. Now that a large number of NATO countries have consented to provide main battle tanks to Ukraine, President Volodymyr Zelensky has begun asking his fellow world leaders for modern fighter jets, dubbing the requested warplanes the Wings of Freedom. I'm afraid that when it comes to supplying fighter jets, Canada's cupboard is more than bare. Keen-eyed followers of the RCAF will recall that in 2015, the newly elected Liberal government announced that due to attrition, Canada's aging fleet of CF18 fighters had shrunk below a state of operational readiness. To plug what they termed this capability gap, the RCAF would purchase 18 Boeing Super Hornets. This was to be an off-the-shelf short-term purchase, while a separate competition would be conducted to select a long-term replacement for Canada's fleet of Legacy Hornets. Industry watchers realized this would weigh heavily in any competition for the future fighter fleet. This was not good news for Lockheed Martin, the makers of the F-35 Joint Strike Fighter. The previous Conservative government had announced in 2010 that the F-35 would be the replacement for the Hornet fleet. But in the face of exploding cost overruns in 2012, then Prime Minister Stephen Harper pressed what was called a reset button on the purchase. For the record, in 2015, the Trudeau Liberals campaigned on a platform that if elected, they would scrub the F-35 from the list of any potential CF-18 replacements. In the end, it was a trade dispute between Boeing and Canadian aerospace company Bombardier that threw a monkey wrench into the Liberals' Super Hornet purchase. Siding with Bombardier, the Liberals proclaimed Boeing to no longer be a trusted supplier, and the deal to buy 18 Super Hornets was scuttled. This left the Trudeau government in a bit of a fix, as they had used the proclaimed capability gap as a rationale to buy the 18 Super Hornets. The solution was to buy the same number of mothballed Australian Air Force Legacy F-18s and refurbish them to operational readiness. Unfortunately, these old Australian planes are not expected to fully enter Canada's service until 2025. So, Canada's capability gap to fulfill obligations with both NORAD and NATO now stands at 8 years and counting. This past March, the Trudeau government announced that they were entering into an agreement with Lockheed Martin to purchase 88 of the same F-35s that they had once vowed never to buy. The price tag for these 88 aircraft is estimated to be $19 billion, with a life cycle cost of over $70 billion. This figure is wildly over the original budgeted cost to the Harper government. However, for those expecting a quick fix to the RCAF's capability gap, it must be pointed out that the first 4 of these F-35s will not be delivered until 2026, and Canada will keep flying the CF-18s until 2032. Luckily for embattled President Zelensky, other NATO countries, including the US, do possess surplus quantities of modern fighter jets. While it might seem somewhat embarrassing that Canada, a G8 nation and a member of NATO, cannot spare any more modern military hardware for Ukraine, it must be remembered that not that long ago it was Canada that was begging our allies for equipment. When our troops first deployed to Afghanistan in 2002, we had to borrow M777 howitzers from the US Marines, Leopard 2 tanks from Germany, and Chinook heavy lift transport helicopters from the US Air Force. Without the goodwill of our allies, who had the foresight to invest in modern military equipment, Canada could not have operated an expeditionary force in Afghanistan. That is the real embarrassment. This has been On Target, and I'm Scott Taylor.